My name is Samantha, and at 35 years old, I find myself blissfully married to my dear husband, Douglas. Together, we lead a serene and delightful life with our vibrant 7-year-old son, Joseph, and our sweet 4-year-old daughter, Christina. Douglas and I first encountered each other at the university cafeteria during our college years. We were each enjoying a coffee, with a book in hand, when a spontaneous conversation sparked, leading to a deep and meaningful connection. Ever calm and considerate, Douglas would patiently listen to my stories, providing comfort with kindness. Over time, as our friendship flourished, I realized that his presence in my life had become absolutely irreplaceable. Underneath a canopy of beautifully blossoming trees, he shyly presented a ring, proclaiming his desire to be with me forever. His sincere words touched my heart profoundly, and so, filled with emotion, I nodded in agreement. From the moment we exchanged vows, we have known true happiness in our marriage. When our son Joseph was born, Douglas, with joyful tears, tenderly murmured, "He's our treasure." Joseph is an energetic and curious child who thrives in the outdoors. Each weekend we embark on delightful family picnics. Observing him run energetically fills my heart with immense joy and fulfillment. Christina arrived soon after, born with the congenital condition. Initially, our concerns were significant, but Douglas and I committed ourselves to supporting her through every challenge. Joseph, her protective older brother, cherishes his sister deeply, always saying, "I will protect Christina." Watching their bond grow has been the pinnacle of my joy. In addition to my family, my grandmother Helen holds an extraordinarily special place in my heart. She is the epitome of grace and warmth, qualities I've admired since childhood. My mother, Kathy, divorced my father when I was young and remarried a man named Michael, with whom she had my half-sister, Ashley. As my mother immersed herself in her new family, I gradually felt sidelined, with love and attention lavished on Ashley, while I often felt neglected. During family shopping trips, Ashley would frequently receive new shoes while I was reminded that mine were still perfectly fine. However, my grandmother Helen always treated me warmly and reassured me by saying, "Samantha, you are my precious granddaughter." Whenever loneliness crept in, her home became my sanctuary. The affection I yearned for from my mother was seldom given, making Helen's presence a safe harbor for my heart. During significant occasions, like my wedding or the birth of my children, my parents and stepsister displayed little interest in my life. My wedding felt more like an obligation than a celebration to my mother and Michael. They attended, offering no input on my wedding arrangements or choice of dress, leaving me feeling my dreams and aspirations were dissolving into thin air. After Joseph's birth, my mother prioritized Ashley, bringing her to the hospital without showing much interest in my newborn. Ashley's inquiries about the baby seemed mere curiosity, her gaze detached. Longing for my mother to see and love my child, her focus remained on Ashley, leaving me isolated and lonely. Despite my affection for them, my mother, Ashley, and Michael formed an unyielding unit, making me feel like an outsider. Coming to terms with this reality was challenging. I pondered it repeatedly, but couldn't reconcile these feelings. Eventually, I distanced myself, gaining broader perspective on my familial relationships. Regardless, my grandmother Helen was thrilled when I told her of my decision to marry. She wept tears of happiness, exclaiming, "Congratulations, you've made a wonderful choice." Her heartfelt words warmed me deeply, nearly bringing me to tears. Helen's sincere wish for my happiness moved me profoundly. When I first introduced Douglas to her, her warmth reached into my soul. She greeted him with such kindness, sensing his slight nervousness. Her firm handshake expressed her sincerity as she urged him, "Please take good care of Samantha. I'm counting on you." Touched, Douglas smiled shyly and thanked her profoundly. In that instant, I felt how much my grandmother cherished me and the immense trust she placed in Douglas. Her exuberance, when Joseph and Christina were born, far exceeded all my expectations. She adored our children deeply. Watching Joseph take his first steps, Helen joyfully exclaimed, tears of happiness in her eyes. "Look, he can walk now." Christina's smile captivated her, and she often remarked, "Christina is starting to look like her mama." Helen was not just a grandmother to my children. She was an unlimited source of unconditional love. For all life's challenges, her enduring affection has offered me strength and courage. Her profound love for Hawaii was evident in her home, adorned with vibrant Hawaiian paintings. After my grandfather's early passing, she lived independently, cherishing their shared memories. With her inheritance, Helen purchased a cottage in Hawaii, a place filled with their treasured memories. The charming beachfront cottage was a haven of peace and tranquility. After marrying, I often brought my family there to be with Helen, known for her exceptional lemon pie. Helping her in the kitchen, surrounded by the delightful smells of sugar and butter, remains a cherished memory of mine. Douglas was equally enchanted by the serene atmosphere and often commented with a contented smile, "This place is like heaven." Joseph sprinted joyfully across the sandy shores, while Christina enjoyed listening to Helen's captivating stories as she sat on her lap. There was no mistaking Helen's deep affection for us when she confided, "I plan to leave this cottage to you." My heart swelled with joy at this news. The cottage held precious memories, and I dreamed of creating similar ones for my children. But these blissful days faded when Helen fell gravely ill. I devoted myself to her care while managing Christina's health issues, a formidable challenge. During this period, my mother Kathy and stepfather Michael pretended to care for Helen while secretly plotting to claim her estate. Helen's passing deeply grieved me, and her will revealed a significant inheritance for me, including the cottage and a large sum of money. Overwhelmed by emotion, tears flowed uncontrollably as if Helen's voice was whispering, "Samantha, the cottage and everything else are for you and your family." However, my mother and stepfather insisted it was unfair for me to inherit everything, suggesting I should transfer the cottage to her brother Thomas. Physically and mentally exhausted from caring for Christina and my medical bills, I didn't have the energy to argue. Pressured, I reluctantly handed the keys to Thomas, saying calmly, "We'll handle the paperwork once things settle down." The loss was painful, yet I focused on Christina, feeling joy in my family's presence. Weeks after Helen's death, an unexpected disaster struck. Though reports warned of a hurricane, its devastation's magnitude was unforeseen. The storm's fierce winds and torrential rains engulfed the town. On that day, I stayed home with Christina, whose frailty made her particularly vulnerable, as we monitored the situation. Meanwhile, Douglas and Joseph went to a nearby supermarket to gather supplies. As the streets began to fill with water, Douglas casually remarked, "We'll be back soon," while Joseph added with enthusiasm, "I'll buy some snacks Christina likes," as they waved goodbye. Little did I know these would be the last words I would hear from them. In an attempt to cross back home, their car was swept away by a sudden surge of floodwater. When the news of the accident broke, I felt a chilling emptiness as if life had momentarily paused. I could barely process or accept it. In a frenzy, I dashed to the police station, desperately pleading for help to locate Douglas and Joseph. However, hours later, a police officer sorrowfully informed me they've succumbed to the flooding. My heart shattered instantly with an overwhelming grief, indescribable and suffocating. I found myself in tears. Christina cried too, but I attempted to remain composed for her sake, grappling with the profound sense of loss. There were practicalities to address, such as organizing the funeral. I set a date, contacted friends and family, and meticulously prepared to bid farewell to Douglas and Joseph. Among those informed was my mother, whom I called to relay the tragic news. After a brief pause, she replied indifferently, "That's unfortunate." "When is the funeral?" "Next Saturday," I responded. "I can't come," she said flatly.
"Why?"
I asked. She explained, "I've planned a trip to Hawaii for Ashley. As you know, she needs some cheering up after losing her job and breaking up with her boyfriend. It's been on the calendar for a while." Her words struck a chord. It was bewildering how she prioritized a vacation over honoring her son-in-law and grandson. "You can't be serious?" I implored. Family died, and you're thinking about travel? She stood firm. Samantha, I see your point, but Ashley looks forward to this. Shaken and at a loss for words, I concluded the call, feeling betrayed and alienated. My mother had always favored Ashley, but her heartlessness startled me this time. On the mournful day of the funeral, I bravely fought back tears as I placed their favorite flowers delicately atop their caskets, delivering a quiet farewell. The ceremony was well attended, with Douglas's family and friends offering slight comfort. In an unexpected visit, even my estranged father and his side of the family appeared, expressing shared grief that lent a small respite amid my sorrow. Meanwhile, the absence of my mother, stepfather, and stepsister was conspicuous by its presence. I could envision them at the airport, awaiting their flight. Envisioning the image sparked an anger in me that burned quietly. The tragedy was heavy enough without my family's callousness adding to my burden. After the funeral, I reviewed security footage from the cottage in Hawaii. Their nonchalant demeanor as they settled in boiled my resolve. They wouldn't evade accountability. Immediately, I involved the police, lodging a trespassing report, resulting in their eviction. Confronted by police and ordered to leave, they were stunned, claiming the cottage was meant to be under Thomas, my grandmother's brother's name. Yet the officers sided with me as the documented legal owner, leaving them no choice but to secure a temporary stay at a nearby hotel. Enraged afterward, my mother called, demanding answers. "What have you done, Samantha? Why did you do this?" Her voice bristling with incredulity. The air was thick with tension as anger swelled within me, rendering me momentarily speechless. Her audacity was astonishing as I contemplated her self-centered nature. I was baffled by the notion of being accused of trespassing, as we're family, after all. She continued to stress her point vehemently, insisting that there should be no issue with a family member visiting. Her words made my heart grow cold as they echoed past pain and betrayal. Despite this, she continued to press her claim without acknowledging any wrongdoing. "Mom, please calm down and listen," I urged, trying to maintain a calm demeanor. I clarified that when she entered the cottage, the legal ownership had not been transferred, meaning it was still under my name. Her frustration was evident as she exclaimed disbelief at being accused by her own family. The irony of her words struck me, considering she hadn't attended the funeral of her son-in-law and grandson. I asserted that true family wouldn't have missed such a crucial event. Her voice faltered slightly, and I used the opportunity to express my pent-up frustration and anger. "I no longer see you as family," I declared firmly before disconnecting the call. My mother, stepfather, and stepsister ended their vacation early to return home, faced with unexpected financial pressure. They had planned a longer stay at the cottage, but circumstances changed their plans. My mother continued to aggressively hold me responsible for the situation, despite her own wrongdoings and absence. She sent me countless messages accusing me of betraying family, but I chose to ignore them. Over time, her words lost their impact, and my feelings towards them grew cold. Douglas had always been the main provider for our family, ensuring a stable lifestyle. Regular financial support was sent to my parents, meeting my mother's frequent requests and my stepfather's demands. Although I never felt a true obligation, it was expected I would help them. The passing of Douglas and Joseph intensified my resentment, especially after my mother's absence from their funeral. Her decision to choose a leisure trip to Hawaii over mourning with family felt like an unforgivable betrayal, solidifying my resolve to stop all financial aid. The month after cutting financial support, my panicked mother called, questioning why the money had stopped. I felt a wave of disturbance with each call, but maintained composure, explaining I would no longer provide financial support. After stunned silence, she pleaded in desperation, questioning how they would survive. It was a defining moment. I was resolute. "I have no intention to send money anymore," I said coldly, pointing out her absence at the funeral and the vacation in Hawaii as reasons to stop. Her anger escalated, calling me heartless, but her words no longer affected me. I confirmed there was nothing more to discuss, and ended the call. My decision to cut ties was firm, and I felt at peace with this resolution. Following the decision to sever connections with my family and halt all financial aid, my mother and stepfather were left to manage solely on their pensions. Relatives noted that Ashley was still at home and unemployed after losing her job. Their household budget crumbled, struggling even with utility bills and limited dining to humble meals. My mother, with a sigh, chose discounted groceries while my stepfather failed to secure employment due to his aging. The home that once buzzed with liveliness was now weighed down by a heavy silence. Despite their turmoil, I felt no obligation to aid them, prioritizing my peace of mind above family troubles. The desperation of my mother and stepfather grew apparent when they began visiting my house uninvited, pleading for money. When denied, they caused chaos, instilling fear of their unexpected visits. To gain a sense of security, I installed security cameras and strengthened the locks. Every ring of the doorbell unsettled me, prompting me often to ignore any visitors. My home became a place fraught with unease, leading to restless nights. One significant day, my mother attempted to sneak into my house, prompting an immediate call to the police. Her arrest added to her criminal record, further distancing her from societal support and cutting off financial aid from banks. The gravity of their ordeal was clear to everyone, including relatives who harshly criticized them, especially after skipping my husband and son's funeral for a holiday in Hawaii. Apologies from my mother could not pierce my heart. I was determined to protect my own well-being and Christina's, nurturing her strength against our turbulent family ties. Rejecting the familial expectations of self-sacrifice, I set a new course by completely detaching from my stepfamily, ceasing financial support. It was an acknowledgement of how much I had compromised. Christina and I relocated to a Hawaiian cottage, basking in the serenity of the sea. Her recovery brought her smile back, and supporting her inspired hope in me. Walking the beach together, we reflected on how our struggles shaped us, increasing our appreciation for our fresh start. Our decision to live boldly cultivated peace in our lives and unfolded a promising future free from the burdens of the past. Retaining our newfound freedom, I took pride in our journey of renewal and the fulfillment that came with leaving my former family behind. I cherished the strengthened bond with Christina, embracing each new day with determination and a vision of a life unbound by past ties.